I found my son-in-law's laptop open on my kitchen table, and what I saw on the screen made me set down my coffee so carefully, so deliberately, that I'm surprised the mug didn't shatter from the effort it took not to throw it across the room. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up to the Tuesday morning when none of this had happened yet, when I was still just a 63-year-old retired electrician from Knoxville, Tennessee, whose biggest concern was whether my tomato plants were going to survive another dry August. My daughter's name is Aubrey. She married a man named, well, I'll call him what I called him for 7 years. I called him Son. His real name is Colton Webb. He had one of those firm handshakes and a way of looking you dead in the eye when he talked to you that I always took for honesty. I know better now. Aubrey and Colton have been married since 2017. They had 2 kids, my grandchildren, my whole heart, Piper, who was 9, and little James, who had just turned 6 in July. Good kids, smart kids, the kind of kids who still run to the door when Grandpa shows up. They lived about 20 minutes from me, which suited everyone fine. My wife, Ruth Ann, passed from ovarian cancer back in 2019, so those grandkids became everything. I was over there most Sundays for dinner. I'd pick Piper up from soccer practice when Aubrey had to work late. James and I had a standing Saturday morning agreement involving pancakes and cartoons that neither of us ever broke. So when Aubrey called me that Tuesday in August and asked if I could come by and let the cable technician in, she had a work meeting she couldn't reschedule. Colton was traveling for business in Atlanta. I didn't think twice. I still had a key. I told her I'd be there by 9. The cable guy came and went inside of 45 minutes. I was about to lock up and head home when I noticed Colton's laptop sitting open on the kitchen table. The screen hadn't gone dark yet. I wasn't snooping. I want to be clear about that. I walked past it to grab my jacket off the chair, and I glanced at it the way you glance at anything that's right in front of your face. There was a spreadsheet open. That's what I saw first. Numbers, columns, dates, nothing alarming about a spreadsheet. But one column heading stopped me. It said recipient age, and the column next to it said delivery window. I told myself it was work. Colton was in medical device sales. Maybe it was patient demographic data or something like that. I told myself a lot of things in the 30 seconds I stood there. Then I saw the tab open next to the spreadsheet. Just a browser tab. The preview text in the tab read, verified minors preferred, discreet. The room tilted. I don't know how else to describe it. The room just tilted. Like the floor was suddenly not where it was supposed to be. I pulled out my cell phone and I took photographs of that screen. Every tab, every column, every number I could see. My hands were shaking so badly the first 2 photos came out blurred. I took 6 total. Then I stepped away from that laptop like it was something that could burn me, and I stood in my daughter's kitchen and I tried to remember how to breathe. I did not touch the laptop again. I did not close it. I walked outside, sat in my truck, and called the only person I trusted completely in that moment, my old friend Everett Schultz, who'd retired from the Knox County Sheriff's Department 3 years ago after 31 years on the job. Everett picked up on the second ring. I need you to look at something, I said. Today, right now, if you can. He heard something in my voice. Everett always could read people. Where are you? Sitting in my daughter's driveway. Don't go back inside, he said. I'll be there in 20 minutes. While I waited, I sat in that truck and I went back through everything in my head. Colton's business trips that came up suddenly, last minute, 2 or 3 times a month. The way he'd gotten protective about his phone over the past year. Always face down on the table. Always taken to the bathroom with him. The new laptop he'd bought 6 months ago that he told Aubrey was for work, that she'd never seen him use at home. The financial stuff I hadn't understood. They had a nice house, nicer than you'd expect on 2 modest salaries, and when I'd asked about it once, Colton had said something about investments, and Aubrey had nodded along in a way that made me realize she didn't fully understand it either. I thought about Piper and James, and my stomach turned over completely. Everett pulled up in his old Silverado, and I handed him my phone without saying a single word. He looked through every photo slowly, methodically, the way he'd looked at things for 31 years. His jaw got tight. That was the only sign. "All right," he said finally. He handed the phone back. "Here's what you're going to do. You're not going to say a word to your daughter yet. You're not going to confront him. You're going to go home, you're going to act completely normal, and tomorrow morning I'm going to make a phone call to someone at the FBI field office in Knoxville. You understand? Is this what I think it is?" I asked. I needed to hear him say it or not say it. Everett looked at me. "Based on what I'm seeing, it could be. That's why this goes to people who know how to handle it, not to us." He paused. "You did exactly right taking those photos and walking out. Don't go back in there. Don't tip him off." I drove home. I sat in my own house, in the chair I've sat in for 20 years, and I stared at the wall until it got dark outside. The hardest thing I have ever done in my life, harder than burying my wife, harder than anything, was calling Aubrey that evening and telling her the cable situation had been handled and that everything looked fine. She said, "Thanks, Dad. You're a lifesaver." I said, "Anytime, sweetheart." We hung up. I went to the bathroom and was sick. Colton came home from Atlanta the next day. I know because Aubrey texted me a photo of Piper and James climbing on him in the entryway, both of them shrieking with laughter. She sent it with a row of heart emojis. I looked at that photo for a long time. I thought about my son-in-law's face in it. The big grin, the arms around my grandchildren, and I felt a cold, specific hatred that I had never felt before in 63 years of living. Everett called me Thursday morning. He'd spoken to a contact at the FBI field office, a woman named Special Agent Harmon, who worked a unit I didn't know existed until that week. She wanted to meet with me in person, that afternoon, if possible. I drove downtown to a building I'd driven past 100 times without ever going inside. I sat across from Agent Harmon and two of her colleagues, and I handed over my phone and told them everything. What I'd seen, what I'd photographed, the dates, the tabs, the column headings. They asked me questions for nearly 2 hours. Careful questions, specific questions, the kind that told me they knew exactly what they were looking at. Before I left, Agent Harmon looked at me and said, "Mr. Briggs, I need you to understand that what you did, taking those photos and walking away, may have made the difference here. A lot of people in your position would have confronted him immediately." "I wanted to," I said. "I know, but you didn't. That matters." She told me to go home and act normally. She told me they would move quickly, but that I needed to give them space to work. She told me that under no circumstances was I to tell my daughter, because any change in behavior around Colton could alert him. She told me all of this in a calm, even voice, and I understood every word she said. And I drove home, and I sat in that chair again, and I thought about my grandchildren sleeping 20 minutes away in a house with a man whose laptop I could not stop seeing. What followed was the longest 9 days of my life. I went to Aubrey's for Sunday dinner. I watched Colton help James cut his chicken, and I passed the salt when he asked for it, and I talked about the Vols' upcoming season, and I did not let my face show a single thing. I don't know how I did it. I genuinely do not know. Piper showed me a drawing she'd done at school, a family portrait, all 4 of them plus me off to the side with a big gray beard I don't actually have, standing next to what was apparently my tomato garden. I held that piece of paper and something shifted in my chest, something that had been barely holding together all week, and I told her it was the best drawing I'd ever seen, and I meant it. And I folded it up and put it in my shirt pocket, and I kept it there for the rest of the evening. 9 days after I sat across from Agent Harmon, she called me at 6:47 in the morning. "We're moving today," she said. "Your daughter is going to be contacted by our team within the hour. I wanted you to hear it from me first." "Is she safe?" I asked. "Are the kids safe?" "Yes." Colton left for what he told your daughter was a day trip to Nashville. We have surveillance on him. Your daughter and the children are at home. They are safe. I was at Aubrey's door in 18 minutes. She opened it in her bathrobe, coffee in hand, and when she saw my face, she said, "Dad, what's wrong?" And I had to stand there in her doorway and tell my daughter that the man she'd built her life with for 7 years was not who she thought he was. That federal agents were going to be knocking on her door within the next few minutes. That I needed her to sit down. She didn't cry at first. She just kept shaking her head, very slowly, back and forth, the way you do when you're hearing words that won't quite assemble into meaning. The coffee mug was still in her hand. She never put it down. 2 agents arrived 11 minutes after I did. They were gentle with her. They explained what they could explain at that stage. Not everything, but enough. Aubrey sat at her own kitchen table and listened, and I sat next to her with my hand over hers, and I didn't say a word because there was nothing to say. Piper came downstairs in the middle of it, sleepy-eyed, wanting to know if there was school today. Aubrey pulled herself together in a way that made me fiercely proud of her. She took one breath, stood up, smiled, and told Piper, "Yes, sweetheart, let's go get you some cereal." She walked her daughter to the kitchen like nothing in the world was happening. Colton was arrested at a truck stop off I-40 outside of Lebanon, Tennessee at 9:23 that morning. I know the exact time because Agent Harmon texted me 2 words, "It's done." What came out over the following weeks I will not detail completely here because some of it is still part of an ongoing case. What I can tell you is that the spreadsheet on that laptop was part of something much larger than one man in one house in Knoxville, Tennessee. What I can tell you is that federal charges were filed and that Colton Webb is not going to be attending any more Sunday dinners. What I can tell you is that the sentencing, when it came, was not the slap on the wrist my daughter had feared. It was the kind of number that means a man will be an old man, if he's anything at all, by the time he walks out. Aubrey had known nothing. That was the thing that mattered most to me, because I hadn't been fully certain. You're never fully certain about the people closest to you, and that knowledge alone is its own quiet devastation. But the investigation was thorough, and the conclusion was clear. She had known nothing. She filed for divorce from a prison intake facility. The kids are resilient in ways that humble you. Piper asked hard questions for a while. James was too young to understand much beyond the fact that his daddy wasn't coming home, and we handled that as gently as we could. There were therapy appointments, and there were hard nights, and there were mornings when Aubrey called me before 7 a.m. just to hear a voice she trusted, and I answered every single time. They moved in with me for 4 months that fall. I want to say I did it for them, but honestly, I did it for me too. I needed them close. I needed to hear little James's feet on my hardwood floors at 6 in the morning and Piper arguing about screen time and the sound of my daughter making coffee in my kitchen. I needed to know they were real and they were safe and they were right there. We converted my guest room into the kids' room. We put glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, the kind that Ruth Ann had wanted to put up for years and I'd always put off. I stood on a step stool at 10 o'clock on a Thursday night, pressing plastic stars onto the ceiling, while Piper directed me, "More to the left, Grandpa. No, your other left." And James handed them to me one at a time with great ceremony. And I thought, this is what life does. It breaks something and then it shows you, in the same breath, what was worth keeping. I still have Piper's drawing. It's in a frame now, on the wall in my living room. Big gray beard and all. I am not a man who talks about faith much. Ruth Ann was the churchgoer in our family. But tell you what I believe. I believe I was supposed to be in that house that Tuesday morning. I believe something put my eyes on that screen at exactly the right moment. I don't know what to call that. I just know that it's real, because I lived it. Grandpas in stories are supposed to tell bedtime tales and fall asleep in recliners. Maybe some of us do, but some of us are also the ones who notice. Some of us are the ones who pick up the phone and don't say a word until we talk to the right people. Some of us are the ones who show up at the door 18 minutes after the call comes in. If you're a grandparent watching this, pay attention. Not with panic, not with suspicion of everything and everyone, just with the particular kind of attention that comes from loving something more than you love your own comfort or your own peace of mind. That kind of attention is not nothing. That kind of attention can be everything. Piper made me another drawing last month. This one has the glow-in-the-dark stars in it. She labeled one of them Grandma Ruth. I couldn't speak for about a full minute when she handed it to me. That one's framed too.